All right, next I'd like to get into the shuffle groove. That is the groove derived from triplets. And what I'd like to start off with, we'll start with our eighth note triplet groove. This is the kind of groove you can hear in Sly and the Family Stone's Hot Fun in the Summertime, which I stole from to get my beat for Hold the Line. And that is triplets being, I'll demonstrate on the hi-hat, 1 ta-ta, 2 ta-ta, 3 ta-ta, 4 ta-ta. Now just keeping triplets, what I'm going to do is on the bass drum I'm going to play a pattern hitting the bass drum on the downbeat of 1 and on the last triplet of the second beat. And I'm going to hit snare drum on 2 and 4. So with the guys, what I'm going to do is we're going to play, it's actually like a shuffle Charleston figure. And I'm going to play different variations, accenting the hi-hat differently, maybe opening the hi-hat on the last triplet of the fourth beat and closing it on 1, and just messing around with different accents, variations of this groove. An example. 1, 2, 3. All right, next we're going to get into the shuffle groove. And that is the first and last note of the triplet on the first beat, the first and last note of the triplet on the second, the first and last note of the triplet on the third, and the first and last note of the triplet on the fourth. Something like this. 1 ta-ta, 2 ta-ta, 3 ta-ta, 4 ta-ta. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to play a backbeats on the snare drum on 2 and 4. And the bass drum, I'm going to play the first and last note of the triplet on the first beat and the last note of the triplet on the second beat. The first and last triplet of the third beat and the last note of the triplet on the fourth beat. Something like this. Now you'll notice what I like to do is on the backbeats, you'll hear a ghost note after each backbeat. A ghost eighth note triplet beat there, like this. Now this is the kind of beat and the variations of this beat that I used on like Lido Shuffle and Black Friday and whatnot. So maybe we can play a taste of a little up-tempo shuffle groove for you here. 1, 2, 1, 2. That's the shuffle, one version. Another version is playing with the left hand what you're playing with your right hand. That is the first beat and the last beat of the triplet of beats 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that would sound something like this. Now you'll notice I'm not making the accents, the beats even in dynamics with the left hand, because I want the 2 and 4 to land real nice, sounding like this again. So that's the kind of groove you hear sometimes. What's the Marvin Gaye tune, Trouble Man? Real nice, bluesy, sexy type things. Something like this. Let's play a little bit. 1, 2, 3. All right, next I'd like to get into the halftime shuffle groove. This groove is one of my favorites. Some of my favorite drummers, I love hearing them play this kind of groove. I used the halftime shuffle groove on the tune Rosanna that Toto cut. And I've been asked about that beat a lot, so I'd like to try to explain that beat at the best of my ability right now, get it clear. I stole that beat from listening to 2 records. One was Home at Last and Babylon Sisters, which is Bernard Purdie, Steely Dan records. Another is the John Bonham on Fool in the Rain, a Led Zeppelin tune. The Bernard Purdie thing, I like to call it the Bernard Purdie halftime shuffle, is basically this. The John Bonham beat that I copied from Fool in the Rain was something like this. Putting those 2 beats together, I came up with my own little kind of hybrid. For Rosanna, I added the Bo Diddley figure. It's a shuffle Bo Diddley figure, basically. And putting them together, this is what it came up with. All right, let me break this beat down for you. On the hi-hat, I'm playing the first and last note of the triplet on each beat. With the left hand, I'm going to ghost the second note of each triplet on each beat. Something like this. 1, 1, 1. Now I'm going to add the backbeat on the 3rd beat on the snare drum, and I'm going to ghost the second note of the 3rd triplet. Something like this. Now I'm going to add the Bo Diddley shuffle bass drum figure. And all together it should be something like this. That's the basic groove. Now you can do things like play quarter notes on the hi-hat like Bernard do to get a different kind of lope out of it. And that would sound like this. Okay, now I'm going to play a little bit of this groove with the band so that you can play along. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and another shuffle groove that I like to play is one that for me comes from the jazz cymbal beat, which is the 1 ta ta, 2 ta ta, 3 ta ta, 4 ta ta, 1 ta ta, 2 ta ta, 3 ta ta, 4 ta ta, 1 ta ta, 2 ta ta, 3 ta ta, 4. Now, I would recommend listening to some jazz albums and playing along just with your right hand. And build up. Because you could take the jazz beat and apply it to some contemporary nice grooves thusly. And it would sound something like this. And you can mess with the hi-hat. So I'm going to play a little bit of that with the rhythm section, and check it out. 1, 2, 3. All right, another halftime groove you can do is earlier I showed you the cymbal beat, the jazz cymbal beat, and how that applied to a shuffle with the backbeats. We'll do the same beat with the hi-hat, except now put the snare drum on the third beat. Something like this. And now we'll demonstrate it with the rhythm section. 1, 2, 3. All right, in closing, I'd like to re-emphasize what I said earlier, and that is you should work on your technique, your fundamental rudiments, and really listen to as many records as possible so you can hear all sorts of grooves, all sorts of different drummers and their interpretations of those grooves, and play as much as possible. I would also like to thank Richie Honori and Joe Porcaro for their technical assistance, Bill Schnee for engineering, and Mike Porcaro and David Garfield for being in the rhythm section. And we'd like to close with a Garfield composition called Creatures Stomp.